Let's talk about imperfection. Imperfection can make something unique, it can make it interesting, it can cause us to look more closely or listen more intently. Heck, imperfection can even be beautiful, and it can be familiar. Hell, it can even be fun. What does that have to do with today's review? Everything, because the Klipsch La Scala loudspeaker isn't perfect. Far from it, actually. And yet, among a group of enthusiasts, audiophiles, people that pride themselves on the pursuit of perfection, the La Scala has endured. But why? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So hit that like button and subscribe because we are finally reviewing the iconic La Scala loudspeaker from Klipsch. Launched in 1963, the La Scala was designed in part to be a smaller Klipsch horn-like loudspeaker, only one with fewer restrictions and placement requirements. The La Scala is a true three-way horn-loaded loudspeaker, a distinction it shares only with the Klipsch horn, or maybe perhaps the newly announced Jubilee, and it is this distinction that separates it from the other speakers in Klipsch's heritage lineup of products, say for instance, our Heresy Mark IVs. The La Scala is a large speaker, and it is crafted by hand right here in the United States. And the reason it's so big is because it has a 15-inch horn-loaded woofer combined with a 2-inch horn-loaded mid-range and 1-inch horn-loaded tweeter. This gives the speaker a reported frequency response of 51 Hz to 20 kHz. And it has a sensitivity of 105 dB into 8 ohms. This means that the La Scala is capable of reaching concert-like volumes with true-to-life dynamics with only a handful of watts at its disposal. But none of these specifications tell you anything about what it is like to live with or listen to the La Scala day to day. The La Scala is a statement loudspeaker. It's big, possibly too big for most people in most rooms. In our open concept living room, I consider it to be on the ragged edge of a good fit. But if you're one of the lucky ones that has a space large enough to accommodate a speaker of this size, I think you're going to find that the finish options, specifically the American walnut finish you're seeing here, goes a long way in dressing up such a substantial loudspeaker and making it feel more at home. I especially love all of the attention to detail that is put into this loudspeaker, as it is very evident in every seam, joint, heck, every material used all feels expertly handcrafted. This speaker has a real sense of soul in its construction, and that soul carries over into its sound. And I know this is something that I have brought up on this channel before, but as we work our way up the Klipsch family tree, not only can you hear a lineage, but as you climb higher in the line, the sonic improvements that you're treated to become all the more clear. Before I get into the emotional impact that is the La Scala, allow me to address the obvious drawbacks. It's true, despite having a 15-inch woofer, the La Scala lacks a certain depth to its bass. It's also true that at 105 dB efficient into 8 ohms, it's very easy to drive this loudspeaker and perhaps even overdrive it. And if you do, you can expect to hear some sibilance or maybe even the megaphone-like effect in the mid-range. You may even question Klipsch's sensitivity rating altogether. And I'm sure there's a handful of you that have already gone online and found frequency response curves for this particular speaker, and it shows peaks and valleys and resonances throughout. And you're going to use all of this as justification for why the La Scala isn't a good speaker, let alone a great one. But until you yourself listen to this speaker, I would urge you to withhold your judgment. Because when you do, when you physically sit down and listen to a pair of La Scalas, all of that stuff, at least for me, quickly melts away. Because no speaker that I have heard to date gets at the heart and the soul of my favorite artists and their music better than the La Scala. There's just an intangible quality about the way the music is allowed to unfold through this speaker. And to say that it has a live sound, that sells it short, because I think the word live implies a sort of PA sound, which I know the La Scala has been in the past, but you need to get images of Guitar Center out of your head and instead replace them with instruments such as Stradivarius, because the La Scala is very much an instrument and not an audio Xerox machine. Let's then replace the word live with presence, the kind of presence that if you were to turn to your spouse or whomever you may be near and have a conversation, your brain understands as the other person being present in the room with you. Now imagine that person is Beth Hart or Elton John, and they're now in your room. That is the type of presence the La Scala has. Because the methods used to translate the sound from the speaker to your ear are basically the same. They're both kind of horn instruments. And as a result, nothing is really lost in translation. And when you couple this with the fact that it takes virtually no effort to make the La Scalas come alive, you quickly realize how veiled other loudspeakers sound in comparison. So veiled, in fact, that it makes it very difficult for your brain to suspend its disbelief. And this is why other speakers never sound like the real thing. And yet, the La Scala comes closer to sounding real than anything I have ever heard to date. But I will admit, the La Scala is not a neutral loudspeaker. It definitely has a color, a tone, but that tone is born somewhat out of the materials that Klipsch has chosen to use in its construction. And it doesn't have a lot of low-end weight, and it gets a little bit light in the mid-bass, but yet the speaker itself is still, well, it's warm-ish. But what I found really surprising is just how laid back this speaker is at most volumes. Despite being a horn design, it's not a speaker that shouts at you. In fact, it's likely going to be your source material or just your personal listening habits that get this speaker to misbehave rather than the speaker doing it on its own. And I wasn't surprised by this, especially given my experience with the Heresy Mark IVs, because the Heresy Mark IVs have a horn-loaded mid-range in tweeter, and like the La Scala, it is far more smooth sounding than shouty. The high-frequency extension is very natural and true to life, or true to the instrument, and the La Scala is no different. Though, unlike the Heresy Mark IV, the high-frequency and mid-range performance of the La Scala seems completely unrestrained by physical size the way the Heresy Mark IV is. For such a large speaker, it's rather shocking to discover just how small and delicate the La Scalas can sound. And it's not impossible to get these speakers to aurally disappear, though there is no looking past them in your room. Now, they're not too critical about placement. For the best center imaging and focus, you're going to want to get the ratio between your listening position and the distance between the speakers themselves correct, rather than lose sleep over things like toe-in. But when you do, when you get it all just right, the horizontal dispersion of the La Scalas is room-defying. These speakers can produce a room-filling soundstage, but it's always one that is appropriate to the source material, be it a small jazz ensemble or huge rock concert-like event. The La Scalas are just infinitely scalable in terms of volume and dynamics, but the soundstage is not laser etched. It's far more a recreation of the physical space. So the La Scalas are not monitor speakers. They're not going to give you that producer or engineer-like presentation inside the booth. Instead, they're going to sound a lot more like what the band hears out in the room, physically recording the track. And all of these traits can be experienced when relying on the La Scalas for home theater use as well. And even in stereo mode, they sound positively cinematic. And they produce an experience that is far more akin to attending a Hollywood premiere than simply just watching a movie in your run-of-the-mill home theater. In terms of dynamics, the speaker is beyond reproach, and no speaker that we have heard to date can touch the La Scala in terms of their scale and dynamics. The real trick to unlocking the potential of the La Scalas comes down to your choice of amplifier, really. While it doesn't require a ton of power to come alive, choosing the right power is going to be of paramount importance. And we connected the La Scala to all of the usual suspects we have in this house. I'm talking Name Unity Atom, Musical Fidelity M5 SI, heck, even the Sony 190 stereo receiver. But the two amplifiers, or integrated amplifiers, that fared the best were surprising. The two best amplifiers that we tested on the La Scalas were the Deckware SE84 UFO2, which is a single-ended triode amplifier, and our recently restored Pioneer SX780, which we unveiled on the Behind the Scenes episode this past Wednesday. You can go check that out. These two amplifiers just breathe real life into the La Scalas in ways other amplifiers simply couldn't match. It's not to say that other amplifiers didn't sound good, they just didn't sound as good as these two options. Now, with the La Scalas being a highly sensitive loudspeaker, you're gonna want to make sure that your amplifier is up to the task. And what I mean by this is that it's very quiet with respect to background noise or hum. You may think that the amp you have right now is pretty quiet through the speakers you have, but you connect it to a high efficiency loudspeaker like the La Scala and you may be in for a rude awakening. And this was our chief complaint with the name Unity Atom. It sounded great, it's just a little bit more on the noisy side. Even with the right amplifier, not every genre of music is going to sound its best through the La Scala, and this mostly has to do with bass. So what sounds good? Well, there's no hard and fast rule to this because you're going to hear some of my examples and go, well, that's a bass heavy track. And I know, but you know, Leon Bridges, Alabama Shakes, the Beastie Boys, Check Your Head, Robin, all sounded fantastic through the La Scalas on their own. But Rage Against the Machine or Metallica's Black Album, they were a bit light and needed a subwoofer or two. Thankfully, you can add a subwoofer and it's not that hard to blend a subwoofer with these speakers. So rest assured, if you're into those types of genres of music, you can still get La Scalas. You're just going to want a subwoofer in tow. And I'm going to use this opportunity, having said that, to implore Klipsch one more time. Please, I know you're watching, please make a subwoofer that has the look and the feel of your heritage line of products. It's time. I've commented on more than one occasion that music just seems to hit differently through a pair of Klipsch loudspeakers. And the La Scala is the embodiment of that statement because no speaker that we've demoed on this channel to date sounds anything like them. The closest thing that we have is obviously our Heresy Mark IVs, and the Heresy Mark IVs do manage to sound a little bit like a scaled down version of the La Scala. They even manage to produce arguably deeper feeling bass, but they just don't have the same transparency as the La Scala, nor do they have the La Scala's effortlessness and dynamics at any volume. So what about our loudspeaker of the year for 2020, the Bowers & Wilkins 702 signatures? Well, those speakers are like the La Scalas as well in that they too are very amplifier dependent, only unlike the La Scala, you need a lot of power and the right kind of power. But when the stars align, the 702 signatures have arguably better detail, better bass impact, and their high frequencies at the extremes are just a little bit more refined. But the 702 signature comes nowhere near the La Scala in terms of that soulfulness and transparency, and I will argue that even though the 702s are half the price of the La Scalas, I think you might end up spending about the same amount of money getting a 702 signature system just right as you would, say, a La Scala system. And when you get into talking about other speakers, let's just ignore price altogether. Well, this is not really a fair comparison. And that isn't to say that the La Scalas are just that much better than everything else. They're different because nothing else quite sounds like them. I love a lot of speakers, a lot of different kinds of speakers. I even own a few, and I can admit to you that some of these speakers on their merits are better than the La Scala. For example, the Concept 300s, a two-way bookshelf, they have better bass than the La Scala. The LS50 Meta has finer detail. Heck, the more affordable 8000F, another Klipsch loudspeaker, it's just straight up better for hard rock and hip hop music right out of the gate. In the end, every speaker is going to have its strengths and its weaknesses, as there is no perfect loudspeaker for everyone or every situation. Which brings me back to imperfection. The La Scala isn't perfect, both sonically and practically, and to be honest, it's not hard to find fault with it or make an argument for why you shouldn't consider it. And this is even before we weaponize its hefty price tag. But much like trying to put your love for someone into words, sometimes you come up short, but you still try because in the end of the day, it's something you feel. You know you love someone, just as I know I love this loudspeaker. And I don't know if I can adequately put into words what it's like to spend time with this speaker. I don't know if this review has done it justice because we review a lot of loudspeakers and we go into every review with an open mind, but we go in knowing that there's a really good chance it's going to be a good product. We may even really like it. We may advocate for you to check it out for yourself, but we know that we have to move on. We have to send it back because something else is coming. This speaker gives me pause. I don't know how else to put it. It is hugely impractical, especially as a content creator. The sheer size of it and the fact that it's so hard to move around and the fact that I have to move it so frequently in order to create other things. And yet you would think that, yes, this is a great speaker, but I'm ready to let it go, but I'm not. All of the practical considerations aside, I don't want to be without this speaker. And I don't know if I can adequately put it into words other than just say it like it is, and that this speaker makes me feel something I haven't felt from a loudspeaker in a really long time. This speaker has brought me to tears, to literal tears. And I get emotional thinking about it because I have formed a connection with it, which is why this speaker, more than any other that we have ever had to date, is going to be incredibly hard to let go. So that's it. That is my review of the Klipsch La Scala loudspeaker. God, I hope it was worth it, and I hope I did this speaker justice. But you know what? You guys let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, my question of the day for you is this. It's not entirely hi-fi or home theater related, but what product in your life have you formed an emotional attachment with, and to what lengths have you gone to keep it in your life? I really do want to know, so sound off down below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and ring that bell so that you are notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that KRISTI has put together for you down below, know that that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here, and we both thank you very much. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile for more hi-fi goodness. And that's it. That's it for today. So remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next video. Bye. I have time. Do you have a comment? Do you have a hot take?
My hot take.
What's KRISTI's hot take?
I don't know. I mean, I think you did a pretty good job at putting your feelings into words.
What are your feelings?
Oh, well, I guess what I was going to say is I feel a lot the way you feel about these speakers. I personally have only had this kind of an emotional reaction twice.
Mm-hmm.
The first time I've talked before on the channel was at Whetstone Audio when we were listening to the orangutans from Devore Fidelity.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's been so long since I had that experience. It's hard for me to say if I were to go back today and hear them again, as now that I have experienced so much more since that time,
mm-hmm.
would I still feel the same about those particular speakers? I don't know. I'm not going to know until I go back and hear them again. It would be great to be able to get those in for a review.
It would. It'd be fantastic.
It would be a very good experiment for me.
Yeah.
But that experience aside, like you kind of alluded to, we have listened to a ton of
mm-hmm.
really amazing speakers, or just music in this house because of the gear we've had the opportunity to review.
Mm-hmm.
But I have yet to find anything like these speakers. And I'm not going to lie, they're a pain in the to have around. I mean, they are really beautiful, but they are so big.
Oh, God.
So big. And even though I've always thought we kind of had a nice sized living space, it's not big enough for these, really. But they are so much fun. And considering it's been like a full year since we've done anything like gone to see a live show or, gone dancing at a club or whatever, which is, things that we enjoyed doing
Everything.
Like last night when we really turned them up and just
did one last hurrah
with them.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like being at a live show or being inside of Barbarella's or whatever.
Yeah, it was special.
It was really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
And
that, yeah.
You can't put a price on something like that. And what's really sad is that so many people are never going to have this kind of opportunity.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. Like I wrote on my Instagram stories, like when this speaker arrived, I was ecstatic. Because it was like getting to play in the big leagues. Now, I've heard these speakers, never in my own house. I've always had to be at a dealer or something. I've never had the opportunity to review these on my own. And so when they arrived, like, I will admit, I was unboxing them, as painful as it was to do solo. Like, it was a bit of a, like, self kind of, I don't want to say affirmation, but congratulations, like, you earned this. It was much more of a acquisition. And then in spending time with them and listening to them, it went from the same things that make you want to buy like a Ferrari or have the bigger house.
Like a milestone.
It became less and less of a milestone and more of like therapy.
Mm-hmm.
Like these products, these reviews are so hard for me to do because I question everything while I'm doing them, because I wonder if I'm not talking about what's really important in the hobby the right way. You know, like everyone focuses like, well, what's the bass like? Or is the mid-range warm? Is it thin? Is it bright? Is it this? And it's like, who? And I know that part of the hobby is giving a shit about that stuff. But God, nothing has made me giggle, laugh, or reached into my chest and pulled my freaking heart out like these. You know, nothing has stopped me in my tracks like these. Everything else has made me appreciate their quality. Like the LS50 Metas make me appreciate their capability and applaud their ingenuity and their craftsmanship. This speaker makes me appreciate my own memories and feelings. And in a weird way, as big as it is and as unruly as a speaker as it is not a speaker that tries to be like, well, you didn't talk about the X material, or have you noticed we used a polymer composite? It's wood. It's wood and a horn.
Yeah, it's very simplistic.
It's so simple. And maybe that's also part of why it works. And the fact that we have gone to the most old school amplifiers that we've ever had, and they sound positively modern and high-end and crazy expensive, and they're arguably kind of the cheaper ones. What does that say? Like, what does that say about a product that is so not demanding of anything maybe other than physical space, but it's so maximized for engagement? And that it's not hard. It's not hard to technically pick this speaker apart. It really isn't. But none of it matters. And it makes me really wonder if I need to hold other products to that standard, or if that's not fair, or if I even want to review another speaker at times. I'm
don't
serious, because it's like I'm getting to that point where it's like I want to stop and I want to have something for me.
Yeah, that's the problem with having a channel and it being a part of your, it's a business.
Yeah, it's my job.
I would just look at it. I would try to look at it from another perspective and just appreciate that something came in the door that made you to rediscover a love of music, or be able to like kind of go back and call up some of your memories from your past, or look at it from that perspective rather than, oh, well, do I ever want to review another speaker again? I mean, that's not reality.
I know. And that was a bit, I guess, over the top, but
a little bit emo,
but you know what I mean, though?
I totally know what you mean.
Like, other speakers, they kind of make you marvel at them. Like, you get bowled over by what they're able to do. I don't know if they ever really connect. They do. Okay, they do, but
yeah, I don't know. I think you're.
What I think I'm doing is I think I'm trying to sell myself on like how to justify literally giving up an entire room of our house, another one we don't have.
Yeah, we have
to store these.
We have to move at this point.
To store these for 9 months out of a year that they won't be connected to anything. I mean, look, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. It was so worth it and so worth the wait. And I know that we have a little bit more time with these. I'm grateful that, we have the Heresy Mark IVs, which are they're no slouch.
No, they're
fantastic.
great.
They're great. And if you want a little pocket La Scala, if you want a little pocket La Scala, I highly recommend the Heresy Mark IVs. And I'm sure that there will be a number of you that are like, well, you need to get Fortes or Cornwalls. That's what you need. Those are going to be more manageable. And it's like...
Well, we'll have to give them a try.
We'll have to give them a try.
We haven't listened to them yet, but...
We'll have to give them a try, but these are special. These are frickin' special. But I like your idea, though, the DeVore Fidelities. I think that would be interesting. Or the Avant-Garde Unos. They're another horn-based, high-efficiency speaker. Those would be fun. Maybe just do a whole, let's just chase that dragon.
But I think that as far as other speakers that come in, I think you can still... It could be a good question that you ask yourself, not that you can really directly compare something. For example, we have the Monitor Audio Bronze in-house for review, and it would not be a fair comparison to compare that speaker to the La Scalas. Mm-hmm. But you can still say, well, how do these make me feel? Like, how connected to the music am I?
Yeah, I think that might be a new category that we sort of inject into this beyond just trying to describe the sound. Because for me, that's everything. Like, I can't tell you how many technically proficient loudspeakers I've heard in my day that I'm like, cool, but I never got goosebumps.
Well, and we've had plenty of speakers come through the door that, on paper, especially according to maybe some other notable sources, might say that they are the technically more superior speaker than X, as an example. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have connected with them personally or have felt like they worked good for us. I mean, it really does go back to what you say at the end of every video. The only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. And only you are the one that's going to be able to know what
connects with
touches you and what means something to you. Because if you're the type of person that is really into, rock or hip hop or whatever, there's going to be a speaker that's probably better suited for you.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm the type of person that's, you know, listening to sad Sarah McLachlan songs all the time, like I probably need a different set of speakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, it's all very subjective.
Oh, super subjective.
You know,
Super
and I think
subjective.
that's one of the things that the keyboard warriors forget. You know, it's a subjective opinion.
Yeah.
You know, we can tell you, well, these are the specifications on paper. This is what you can expect. These are the things, associated equipment that we use in our evaluation.
And this is our opinion of the general characteristics.
You know, but you are at the end of the day, you
Yeah.
have to go experience it for yourself.
True.
You
Very
know,
true.
which is, I think, goes back to what you said early at the beginning of this review.
Until you
Hold your reserve, find it in your. I know it's hard. I know it's really hard because everybody wants to be right.
Mm-hmm.
But try and take a minute and think, well, have I even heard this? And in fact, apply that to everything that you see on this channel. Have I heard it? No.
Well,
then
maybe
you
I
may
should-
not know what you're talking about.
Or you may
Or
just
it may be different for you.
or leave yourself open.
Yeah, give yourself the opportunity to be surprised.
Yeah.
Hey, you might like it,
Yeah.
or you might not.
But
And-
find out when you hear it
Yeah,
and not before.
yeah.
So, well, on that note, thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next video.
I don't know where you're going to put that.